practice don't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So it's incumbent upon everybody to first find out how they should be doing things and then going out and applying those things.
Thank you for this opportunity, first of all. I'm a former mental health counselor. I am retired now, retired military, retired counselor. I wanted to get into this to build wealth for my grandchildren and making sure that I do this correctly. I wanted to know what are some of the best tools to utilize when you're starting out.
I think you used the first one right now, right? Starting the process with getting educated and asking the right questions, really coming up with a very succinct and strategized and well thought out process, right? I think a lot of people just start doing stuff. Practice don't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So it's incumbent upon everybody to first find out how they should be doing things and then going out and applying those things. So, one thing that I would encourage yourself, Vincent, as well as everyone else, is to get clear on your why, which it sounds like you've gotten a lot of clarity around that. You want to build generational wealth. It's important to leave something for your grandchildren. So then with that being the goal, and then looking at the fact that you are in retirement, congratulations on that, by the way, starting to look at, what investment strategy or model fits the path that you're trying to travel. And so, I would automatically assume cash flow would be one of them, right? Because that's passive income that could help supplement your monthly expenditure right now, considering that you are retired. Secondly, those will be investments that you will hold on to long term, right? So then, they can go into a trust and then be passed down to the next generation. But then also, you may could complement some of that passive strategy with some active strategy because you may have the time allotment to do so, right? So you may get into a little bit of fix and flip. You may get into a little bit of wholesale to produce large chunks of money that could then pivot and go over to your passive investments. So, I think, number one, identifying what the goal is. Part of the homework tonight, jumping ahead, will be for you to come up with some monetary goals. And I think once you figure out what those are, where you want to be on a monthly basis, maybe net worth is a part of that goal. Maybe it's an annual number that you want to achieve. And by doing so, then by Friday, when we do the customized investment plan, you'll be able to strategically and full confidence say, this is how I want to get there. Okay.
We do have a question in the chat. So this is from Pitts. Their question is, how did you learn how to be a landlord? Did you take a course? And they said that their intent is to buy and hold real estate as an investor.
Yeah, great question, Pitts. So I became a landlord by default, okay? So I started buying rental property in 2006, my junior year in college. I had no idea what I was doing. What happened was a friend of mine was flipping houses. And so at that time, they had this thing called stated income loans. So I would cover the down payment for the buyers who were buying the house from him because they qualified on paper, but they didn't have the financial resources in the form of a down payment to buy the house. So I was using my refund checks in college to gift his buyers the money for their down payment. And then when he flipped them the property, he'd give me a return on my investment. So I quickly identified, I'm like, well, if they buying property with no job, even though I'm in college, I got decent credit, I could do one of these stated income loans. So I started buying rental property. And I mean, my first property, I never forget, I had my daughter who was probably 3 at the time, 4, over there in the property. I was rolling out the walls, painting walls, doing everything, right? Dealing with the locksmith, doing the tenant screenings, all the above. And I did that for probably the first 5 or 6 years, right? Because I went on to end up, when the market contracted from 2008 to 10, I bought like 20 rental properties. I was 24, 25 years old at the time. And so I ended up being a landlord by default. When I became aware of this thing called property managers, I quickly fired myself from that job forever. Like I would never be a landlord again, right? And while there's some merit to it, if you don't know any better, right? I had to start where I stood. But you guys have the unique opportunity to learn a better way so that you don't have to default into anything in your business. Everything can be well thought out, methodical, strategic, and well planned, right? So my advice to you would be, you know, after hearing everything this week and unlocking all of these various quote unquote secrets, right? They're not secrets. Y'all just may not know this stuff yet, right? But the reality is, I believe and I encourage all of our students to go out and hire property management companies and let them do what they do best, and that's manage property. You do what you do best, which is go out, raise capital, find good deals, and expand your portfolio.
And so I am a realtor for 3 years, but just learning the business aspect, making sure we set things up right to get loans and get stuff, I keep hearing it. So what is, how much do a person need to have personally to start that? If they're restructuring, making sure their credit is right and making sure, it's just, I think that's the fear. I know that's for me, just making sure that I'm right for it. But then I'm keep hearing and seeing all these YouTubes. Oh, you don't have to have this. I bought this for that. What is the correct way to make sure we do things successful and setting up our business for using other people's money to get what we need?
It's a great question. And y'all gonna hear me echo this sentiment all throughout the week because I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Y'all being here, getting this education is the most important part of raising capital. The most important part, right? For the first 8 years of my career, as I kind of just peeked back into that space, I did seemingly well. I was 23, 24, 25. I had over 20 rental properties. When most people ran for the hills during the contraction, I was running toward opportunities. And, I was doing well based off of my peer group and what I thought I knew at that time. But there came a point in time when the property started having big problems, right? Sewers and roofs and HVAC and stuff I didn't plan for because I never had any mentorship. I was just being opportunistic that whole time. Well, it got to a point where I was cash strapped, right? So although I started with my own money, at some point, every investor is going to get cash strapped. You're going to only have so much capital to deploy. The worst part was not only that I had capital deployed, but then I didn't have a safety reserve to go and fix said issues. I also didn't have the acumen to go out and raise other people's money because I could have created partnerships and synergy at that point in time and held on to my portfolio. In lieu of my ignorance, I ended up having to sell off my portfolio in a down market, and I left $2 million on the table had I just kept it until the next market cycle, which was right as COVID started, right? On the other side of that, though, some 5 years later after that, I went and found a mentor for the first time. Spent a ton of money, won't lie to y'all, right? The program's like 40 grand, plus it was like an upsell for another 20-some thousand. I ended up leveraging my credit, my wife's credit, all the cash I had on hand, and stepped out on faith. Because for the first time, I immersed myself in an environment where people had similar aspirations and success that I wanted to garner. And I had never had that for 8 years on my own. And I already felt the sting of that ignorance, right? There's a cost to being ignorant. I always say ignorance is expensive. And after doing that, though, after pushing all the chips to the center of the table, what I learned in that program allowed me to go out and raise $1 million in private money in 7 months. My first 7 months of being in that program, I raised $1 million from 6 different people who were complete strangers and bought over 18 flips. So I tell you that, and I tell all of you that to show you both sides of, yes, you can absolutely start with your own capital. But if you're ignorant to how to go out and raise other people money, I don't care if you got $1 million in the bank, you're going to get cash strapped at some point. And furthermore, you're inhibiting yourself from the type of growth that you could be having because, like right now, I put my money in deals that make me 50, 100% in 12 months. The market that I invest in remotely allows me to do that. Whereas I take my investors' money and I may put that money into deals that garner, 8, 10, 12, 15%. Don't make it a bad deal. It's actually a very good deal because their money is stagnant or losing money in some bank account. So knowing how to do that allows me to expand my portfolio significantly. I raised $3 million in the last 18, 24 months and bought 120 units. 90% of that portfolio is using other people's money. So, and our students, who several of them are on here, 90% of the deals they do, they use other people's money. They partner with each other on deals, et cetera. So I know that's a little bit of a long-winded answer, but I wanted to give all the context so you can see both sides of how you can approach it.